Welcome back to Joe Biden's basement.
Hello, everybody.
I'm Smokey Piggleton.
Yes, we haven't introduced ourselves in a while. I'm Zoe, and this is my dad, Will, and this
AKA
is Smokey Piggleton. And this is Effing with the Ineffable.
It is. And
yes.
Here we are to do it.
Yep. And this is our 5th episode right now. Actually, as we
Five
record
already?
This,
5? This is the 5th one.
Yeah. Man. It feels like actually we've done more than that. I don't know.
Because you've edited them. You've had to watch them like 3 times.
I know.
This is like the 20th for you.
As my dad says, I'm the producer of this show and he's the star.
I'm just the star.
Because
World's best cup of coffee.
I'm the one who, edits all the episodes, puts it out on social media.
Does the research.
Uploads. Does the research. Literally all of it. I mean, actually, so today, my dad was the one who came up with this topic that we're going to talk about.
I'm the genius.
Which is all about free speech.
She's the perspiration.
I'm the grunt work.
She's the sweat.
Yeah. We just recorded an episode yesterday, so not much has happened since then.
No, not a thing. Well, there was a screaming match upstairs, but that was...
Good Lord.
We don't need to...
There's a lot of drama
air that
here
dirty
yesterday.
laundry in public.
Yeah.
Give us dirty laundry.
Neither of us were involved in the screaming match, just to be clear.
No.
But, yeah, there was a lot of
drama. I tried to stay not involved.
Same. Yeah.
Not me. Not my... What do you always say? Not my zoo, not my monkeys.
Yeah, exactly.
It is my zoo, and they are my monkeys, but I'm just gonna let them.
One.
I'm just gonna let them kill each other.
Throw poop at each other. So yeah, I have been really enjoying. I've now done 2 days of the Bible in a Year podcast from Father Mike Schmitz, and it's really, really good. So I highly recommend that. I wish I had my Bible to show you, but so far we've read the first four chapters of Genesis. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this morning, and when people usually ask my favorite book, I usually say To Kill a Mockingbird is my favorite book because I really love that book a lot, and it's so good. But as I'm reading Genesis, I'm like, no, I think Genesis is honestly my favorite book.
Really?
It's so good. Every line. I literally have every line highlighted.
Because there's different versions. Yeah. Like King James Version is just bogged down with archaic language.
Okay,
phraseology.
I think what Father Mike uses is the RSV, the Revised Standard Version 2nd edition.
Okay.
I think that's what he uses. I actually have, I believe, the NAB.
Okay.
Is my Bible that I use upstairs,
American.
Which I'm pretty sure that's the one that they use during the Mass readings.
Okay.
Like when we hear stuff at Mass, I'm pretty sure it's New American Bible. So that's why I originally, I love maybe I'll link my Bible below. I love it because it's a
you
Catholic
got a nice one.
journaling Bible. So there's lots of room on the margins, which are completely filled, by the way, on mine. I have it, I have all the margins at least in Genesis, all of the margins are filled.
With question marks.
Some of them are. Some of them, what? Just today, it's the Adam and Eve get, they fall, they eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then God gives them, which we always think of as punishments, but Father Mike says is actually the remedy to the fall is Eve now has to have labor pains, and Adam has to toil at the ground in order to cultivate food. And then right after that, it says
it's like the purgatory of it.
Well,
it's like the purgation of the illness that was generated by the disobedience.
He says it's like the we are made for labor, leisure, and love. If you look at before the fall, the things that we're made for labor, leisure, and love. But they chose not to love. They chose to disobey and to not trust God.
Yeah.
And so we, as a remedy to that, God forces us to learn how to love. And what does love always require? Sacrifice.
Yeah.
So in order to bring a child into the world that we're going to love, we have to feel the labor pain. In order to love our family by providing for them, we have to suffer and toil. And then right after that, we're getting way into the weeds on Genesis. I could literally talk about this for like 3 hours, but I'm not going to.
Yeah,
if you want to have really good discussion about Genesis, watch Jordan Peterson's lectures on Genesis. They're amazing. They'll change the way you read. He
talks for at least 3 hours.
He actually talked for, I think the first episode is like 2.5 hours, and he covers the first line of Genesis. Like I'm not kidding. It's literally like the first line. It's really good. So anyway, watch what he has to say. But it's interesting that right after all that happens, it says Adam. I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically like Adam named his wife Eve, for she was the mother of all the living. And I just have a bunch of question marks in there, like, why right after they have this fall and this, like, God is showing them that they're now going to have to suffer the consequences of choosing not to love. Why is it there that he names her Eve? Like, literally the next sentence. Anyway, really interesting.
He had named the other animals prior.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, he names all the other animals.
All the other creatures.
Yeah.
He named prior. Yeah.
So I just find it very... I do have a lot of question marks in my Bible.
And then yesterday Mary was named the Mother of God.
Yeah. She's the new Eve. Yeah, good stuff. If you haven't read Genesis, read it. It's amazing, especially with Father Mike's like commentary and stuff. It's really good. You
find it right at the beginning of most Bibles.
Yes. Most of them, yeah. So I guess let's talk about our topic for the day, which is free speech and is speech violence? Which is a big... Once again, if you want to hear somebody, I'm gonna literally recommend him every single episode. But if you want to hear somebody talk about this, not Austin Peterson, but if you want to hear somebody give a much better explanation of this, Jordan Peterson has made tons of videos on the importance of free speech, why free speech matters, and speech being violence, and that whole.
And he's been right in the midst of it because he's been accused of offending people by not using the correct pronouns.
Yeah. Not even not using them, but saying that I'm not going to be forced to use them by the government.
Right.
Because he said, like, if somebody comes to me
and says, in class, please refer to me this way.
He says, I will. But I'm not going to have the government tell me that I have to do that.
Because
he is very studied in totalitarianism, and he's like, that is totalitarianism.
Right.
Like, we don't want to give the government the power to, and this is what we're going to get into.
Right.
But we don't want, ultimately our whole point, spoiler alert, is we don't want the government to have the power to suppress speech or force speech at all. Or
be able to set the agendas, be able to reframe things in a way where good is bad and bad is good and up is down and down is up and left is right and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
They want to rename everything and remake everything, and that ends up being violent to the culture.
Yeah,
for sure, because language is really the currency of culture. In a big way. I mean, there's other artistic expressions of culture, but language is one of the big ones. So
I mean, think about just think
having somebody else decide what is valid language.
Yeah,
is not okay.
Think about, like, if every time a Republican got into office, they were like, Democrats, any Democrat talking point is banned. We're not going to let you talk about that stuff anymore. Like, think about if...
Or vice versa.
Think about if Joe Biden gets in office and suddenly says Fox News is banned because they're quote-unquote conservative.
Because they're enemies of the people now.
Yeah, I mean, that... So let's... I made some notes on this. I'm going to try not to get too...
They may be enemies of the people. However, they're not...
they're allowed to do so.
They're allowed to be enemies of the people.
Yeah, exactly. So,
they're allowed to have their own spin, their own propaganda, but there doesn't have to be a party line that everybody has to comply with by force of arms.
So let's talk about, is speech violence?
I would have to say no. In general, it is not. I can hardly think of anything where it is. I mean, it can be hurtful.
Yeah.
You can say things in a way that is very rude and offensive.
Yeah.
And demeaning and derogatory.
Sure.
But do you have a right to do that? Probably. Do other people have a right to not listen? Yes.
And more importantly, does the government have the right to stop you from saying those things?
Right.
I don't want to give the government the power to do those things, because then it. Oh man.
How about the famous yelling fire in a crowded movie theater?
Well,
is that violence?
I wouldn't say that speech itself is violence, but the consequence of doing so can cause harm, right?
Right.
I don't even want to say violence, but it can cause harm in the sense that if people get trampled, then people's bodily rights are being violated.
Yeah.
If you're doing so with the
intention... It's perpetrating a fraud.
Yeah.
With the intention of terrorizing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's certainly that.
Yeah.
But is that prohibited speech? I don't know.
We don't take... So what I was thinking about before is...
I assume you'll get kicked out of that, at least that theater.
Yeah.
And maybe your poster will be up on most theater walls. It's like, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't let him into your theater.
So I think ultimately speech is not violence, but we do take measures to prevent violence from happening. So, like saying you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, that's taking a measure to prevent harm from happening. Another example of that is like a direct threat of violence.
A verbal threat.
Yes. So if you...
I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, and if we... I watched some stuff a while ago about, censorship on Twitter and that kind of stuff, and they were talking about when do we censor threats basically that are made on social media, and they said one of the defining things is threats of violence. First of all, you have to have a likelihood of occurrence that it's actually going to happen. So like I was talking to my husband, I said, if I say I'm going to kill every white person on the earth, what's the likelihood of that actually occurring? Probably pretty low, right?
Be tough.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot of work.
It'd be really hard. Threats to constitute an actual something that we have to worry about.
It has to be a legit threat.
It has to be specific and direct. So if I say you should kill yourself or I'm going to kill you, that's not really specific and direct. If I say I'm going to come to your house at 2:00 today and kill you,
burn you up.
Yeah, that's more specific and direct, because it's talking first of all about one specific person, and it's also saying the kind of the manner in which that's going to happen.
But now, is that violence or is that a good heads up?
Once again,
I would consider that like thank you for telling me that. I'll
definitely
make sure that I'm not home
at
that point.
Or
that I'm well armed.
Once again, I don't think that's violence, but I think that preventing those specific threats, or at least not even preventing, but taking measures to protect yourself if you have a threat like that, is trying to prevent actual violence from taking place. Mm-hmm. Violence isn't being perpetrated in the threat, but
speech isn't actual violence.
Yeah.
It is just inferred or intended.
Yeah.
It's it's giving a warning that there may be violence ensuing.
Yeah. So let's talk real quick about...
Is it violent to be to promulgate misinformation? I mean, that's right now. There's a lot of hullabaloo about, Facebook, we're gonna, everything that's We're going to fact check
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
and ban it from being on our social media because it hasn't been proven to be true.
Yeah.
Like, allegations about Hunter Biden or whatever.
Or more specifically, I mean, if you go on Instagram, I'm somebody who's a little bit more active on social media than you. Maybe a lot more. My dad hardly ever goes on social media.
At all.
But like on Instagram right now, first of all, they around the time of the election, they were completely not letting you see like recent posts with certain hashtags and stuff because they wanted to prevent people from spreading false information. But also, if you post anything about COVID, coronavirus, masks, vaccines, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
In your post and your stories, and this goes for Instagram and
if it says
Facebook,
something like maybe masks aren't helpful, you get banned?
You don't necessarily get banned, but a disclaimer will pop up being like, if you want information about masks, like if you're just looking at the post, it'll say like, if you want information about masks, here's the CDC website. And
if you want the real party line.
Yeah, it'll cover up like part of your thing, your post even, and say like, click here for information because they don't want you like
don't
spreading.
Trust this bozo.
By the way, I think both of our last episodes, number 2 and number 3 about COVID on YouTube have that on the bottom saying, saying like because we were talking about COVID and it's in the
I
title.
told you I was a person of suspicious.
We told you
character.
the FBI was listening in on us, right? No, I mean I think
not
just
the FBI, the Facebook and
Illuminati.
Illuminati, Facebook Illuminati. That's the FBI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good name for the FBI. Anyway, let's talk about the purpose of free speech.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of free speech to you?
To me, the purpose of free speech is to allow everybody to express their opinion. Everybody's got an opinion, right?
Yep.
The old story is, opinions are like body parts. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
You don't always want to have to be exposed to them in public, but everybody's got them, and if people want to expose them, that's fine. That's good. It's good because it generates a dialogue then. Other people can say, I don't see it that way at all. I see it this way. And then there can be a dialogue, and hopefully if there's a respectful dialogue, you can actually get to some sort of thesis, synthesis, and thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and you can actually get deeper and develop a point of view where there's understanding, or where at least there's mutual respect between people for things. There needs to be freedom of religious expression, different cultural expression, different values, different morals. It takes different strokes to run the world. People are all different, and that's okay. It's good. For a country that supposedly is so high on diversity, man, we've got a narrow frame of view as far as the products of our mind.
Yeah, they call it the Overton window, which is like what ideas are like considered mainstream and what ideas are considered outside of that. And if you even talk about it, you can be canceled, or you're, a Nazi,
political
or racist.
Correctness.
Yeah. That's an important thing. And
like
I think
Dave Chappelle says in his new show, I'm going to cancel you forever, and I'm never going to forgive you, and you're going to be, forgotten because you said one thing that was offensive about somebody, or, even if you said it before it was
outside of that Overton window.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, things that people have done in the past, you see them now, and it'd be like, oh my goodness, what were they thinking? Did you see? You see that? That's entertainment.
This morning or yesterday morning. There's what is That's Entertainment? Is it a movie?
It's a collection of clips from old, mostly musicals and stuff.
But was it a movie or a TV show? That's Entertainment.
I think it was actually originally made as a movie.
So anyway, yeah, there's this movie called That's Entertainment.
It's kind of a review of all these old movies and how people...
It's got a bunch of clips of, like, dance numbers and singing and all kinds of stuff. But one
anyway,
of them was, like, a bunch of people in blackface. Like
Mickey Rooney,
yeah.
and I think who was the woman who was Judy Garland.
Yeah,
Judy Garland, and there was like 500 people on stage in blackface.
like the stereotypical like
happened.
Super offensive,
yeah, super blackface. Yeah, and it's like wow, that would be canceled.
It wouldn't even be thought of now.
The idea wouldn't even, yeah.
So, yeah, that was quite uncomfortable to see that. But, so, I think that the fact that we have free speech in this country is such a... It's not appreciated enough, and the fact that we think that there's free speech everywhere in the world, especially with the internet now, we think we can just exchange ideas. But there are so many countries today in the world that suppress the speech of their own people.
And I don't believe that China allows a lot of what goes on the internet through without a filter.
Yeah.
I think there's probably people who are like deciding, okay, this is okay and this is not okay.
Yeah, for
this
sure.
This is acceptable and not acceptable. You know, they have firemen at the door setting fire to the things that are that go against their way.
I mean, I don't want to get too far into North Korea, but do 2 minutes of research on North Korea and you'll realize, like, people are getting shot in the streets for watching South Korean TV shows. I mean, they don't let their people disseminate information at all. Mm-hmm. Because guess what? They're a dictatorship. And the way to undermine a dictatorship is to have a free exchange of ideas where you say, hey, maybe we shouldn't let this guy just completely tell us what to do all the time.
Right.
That's the purpose of free speech, is to have a free exchange of ideas to form ourselves, but mostly our public life, our government, our social systems. That's the point of free speech.
Consider alternatives. You know, it was like that. You know, the Arab Spring a few years back, and all the different, revolutions that have gone on, cultural revolutions, have always been kind of generated by some different ideas coming into the culture and having a clash of cultures there where ideas are considered by some people to have some merit, and other people want to oppress them and suppress those ideas.
Yeah.
And that's always been a problem. It's something that our founding fathers recognized and guarded against. You know, in their great wisdom about how governments can be oppressive, they said governments cannot be in charge of speech.
Yeah. I mean,
but is the government in charge of speech to some extent? And has it been in the past? I think it's less so now with the advent of the internet.
For sure.
And everybody being able to post whatever. And, we can edit our Wikipedia page and say, somebody we know invented the cowbell.
Yeah.
Or we can, say that, maybe it's not cool the way that the government taxes people and does stuff. We can be critical of our government and not have it be coming out. Now, back in the day, I think there was more of more regulation on who could broadcast and what could be broadcast.
Yeah, for sure.
And
in the days of like radio and TV,
yeah,
especially.
And it's interesting, that in a country where we pride ourselves on free speech, things like the Red Scare could come about.
Yeah.
Things like, all those laws about you can't film a pregnant woman, you can't film a married couple sleeping in the same bed. Back
Yeah.
in the day. Now there's like
The Hays Code.
now there's like hardcore pornography on in the middle of the
CBS.
afternoon. It's like, well, I'm not sure we needed that, but okay. I mean, if that's what somebody wants, good for them.
Yeah.
Or bad for them, but have at it.
But they're free to tune in if they want
right.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Go
funny
ahead
that
and burn your eyeballs out.
even our second president, who's actually my favorite president, John Adams, the second president, this was like very beginnings of our country, he passed what was called the Alien and Sedition Acts, which basically said you are not allowed to, it's treason to speak badly of like the president. That was literally like what it was his greatest mistake, by the way. He's not my favorite because he did that. He's my favorite for lots of other reasons. But I mean, we've been and apparently I don't know as much about this, but my husband said FDR also apparently kind of tamped down on his opponent's political speech, or
I think they were using the FBI back then.
Yeah.
The same way that Obama did against Trump, and probably Trump is doing against Biden.
So, I mean, it's been doing...
et cetera, et cetera.
This has been like when you're in charge, when you're in power, you want to silence the other side. I mean, that's kind of a natural human reaction. And one of the points I made was like, free speech is an amazing invention because think about what we did as humans when human civilization started, and we started trying to figure out who had the best ideas about things. I mean, I would say, hey, I don't think you should steal money from me. And you would say, well, I'm bigger and stronger than you, so I'm going to beat you up or you're going to give me money. Like that.
So I think might makes right.
Might makes right. Now we have free speech, so I can say, well, here's the reasons why I think this. And you can say, here's the reasons why.
Here's the reasons why I don't think.
So
right there.
You can say the same.
Give me your lunch money, you little nerd.
Instead of actually dueling and physically fighting, we can duke out our ideas in the public sphere, and we can come to a more enlightened understanding about things. That's the point of free speech.
And it certainly has blossomed in a lot of realms. I mean, there wasn't even free speech about science back in the day.
Yeah.
It was against the law to say that the Earth revolved around the sun. That somehow the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. People got excommunicated and stuff. So certainly the history of powers that be, whether they are secular powers or religious powers or civic powers or whatever powers, have tended to squash other people's ideas,
And now you're free to claim that the Earth is flat.
If you wish.
If you want to.
Yeah, and that I'm a gal.
Sure.
You
could be.
If I was going to prison, I'd want to identify as a female because I don't want to have to fight against guys. I mean, there's some women that I'd hesitate to cross swords with, but certainly there's some guys that are like, oh my gosh, they might hurt me.
I think another important point, and I think Jordan
is that selfish? Should we get more into transgender issues?
Not today. I don't think we want to touch that.
I think that's all right. Yeah, if you want to identify as somebody else, that's fine.
If you want to be transgender,
other people don't necessarily have to
subsidize
honor that or subsidize it. Yeah,
like in the prison system, in your prison system where there are people who are transitioning, and the government is paying
has to pay for those hormone treatments and surgeries.
If you want to turn yourself, if you want to change your body into literally anything, if you are an adult and you want to turn your body into anything, I don't care, but I'm not going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want to do,
like that woman,
who apparently was
like wanted to be a living Barbie doll.
Yeah.
And who like transformed herself.
Yeah.
Through plastic surgery into that.
Like, guess what? I think you've now made yourself into a hideous, disfigured person.
Yeah, you're ridiculous.
But you're free to do so.
From my point of view. But if that's you, you be you.
Yeah.
You do you. Go ahead. But don't ask me, you know. Yesterday I was thinking of the phrase. There was a TV show. It was one of those Disney shows back then. Was it That's So Raven or something like that? Or where the dad was, where the kids were like, come on, Dad, I need the green to make the scene. And the dad was like, I hear what you're saying, but I ain't paying.
That probably was That's So Raven. Or
was it?
I don't know.
You remember that?
Or like
that interchange?
I don't remember that, but I believe you.
I thought it was a great interchange. It's like, hey, I need the green to make the scene. No, I hear what you're saying, but I ain't paying. Which I honor what you're.
Yeah.
I honor your interest in that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
But don't expect me to pay for it.
Yeah. So that
that's kind of the libertarian. I hear what you're saying, but I ain't
paying.
On
everything. Transgenderism included. Like
sure.
Yeah.
Transspeciesism. If you want to be a dog,
sure.
If you want to get your canines sharpened up and have your face elongated and get big old Cocker Spaniel ears, you know.
I wish you well.
It'd probably be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not up for it.
Yeah. I think another
might be an improvement for me.
I think another interesting point about free speech is that, and I think it's Jordan Peterson who's talked about this before, is that when speech is oppressed, it's not like that speech just goes away. When you say you're not allowed to be a Nazi, you're not allowed to talk about that stuff in public, it's not that those ideas go away, it's that they go underground.
Right.
And that's scary, because then there is no free dialogue where we say, okay, let's have a Nazi and literally anyone else up on a stage duking out their ideas, and we quickly show, okay, Nazism is evil, it's wrong, and it's stupid. If we have that debate in public, we can have those ideas out there.
Right. If we acknowledge whatever it is, if we acknowledge whatever reality is going on, we can deal with it.
Yeah.
If we deny it and we try to minimize or ignore or avoid it, we can't deal with it.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem in most people's personal dealings.
Yeah.
You know, the problem of avoidance is really the basis of substance abuse, the basis of a lot of mental illness,
pornography, addiction,
all kinds, any kind of things where you're using distractions to keep yourself from dealing with the real problems of your life. If you're not dealing with the real problems of your life, you're not dealing with the real problems of your life. If things don't change, things don't change, and if you're just stuck in this dream world where you're basically like vanilla skying your entire life, feeding yourself some kind of story about how everything's fine and nothing's a problem, you're stuck. You're stuck where you're at. You're unwilling to recognize that there might even be a problem.
And those problems are never going to go away.
And you can't solve it. You can't solve a problem that you haven't identified.
Yeah.
Or that you haven't allowed yourself to identify.
So
that is the problem with suppressing certain kinds of speech too, and certain kinds of cultural movements is if they're not allowed to be talked about, they can't be, they take on a power of their own by being secret.
Yeah, and guess who finds and hears those ideas, and those ideas are never challenged in their minds. People who are like, people who are looking for them, and people who are alienated
and on the fringes and vulnerable to being radicalized.
Yes, exactly. That's why like young people. Remember when ISIS was a thing? Is that even still a thing anymore?
I don't know. It's still an idea. I mean, that's
still
the
idea of like terrorizing the U.S. and death to infidels.
The U.S. are, it's white devils, and we need to stand against them because they're oppressive.
But like, why were like, American white young men interested in joining ISIS?
Because they were alienated.
Because they were alienated and they were looking for something to give their life meaning. And guess what came along? Mm-hmm. These ads on the internet for ISIS saying, hey, do you want to be part of a movement? Come join our secret movement.
Do you hate America? Has America made you miserable? Yeah, it kind of has.
Well,
maybe I ought to join the scimitar bearing folks.
And if we get together and we say, hey, let's talk about these ideas out in the public square, where we can say, this is clearly stupid and wrong. Here's why. Then those people don't still get radicalized, but maybe don't. And at least they have the option.
Maybe you can talk with them about what is it that's appealing about this, and where is the pain in your life that is causing this, and is ISIS really going to be the solution to the pain that's in your life?
Yeah.
One of the great principles of social work and therapy is that hurt people hurt people.
Yes. I just said that yesterday.
You just heard that?
I just said it yesterday when I was talking to one of the people who was in the screaming match.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That people who are hurt tend to, rather than dealing with that hurt, they try to pass on that hurt, and they hurt other people, and they take it out on somebody else. And that's where the radicalized people come from, is these people who are wounded, these people who are alienated and disenfranchised and don't feel like they're benefiting from American society. They start to resent American society. They see other people living what they consider to be more meaningful and gratifying lives than them, and they become bitter about it, and they want to paint it black. They see somebody having fun and they just want to obliterate it.
Yeah.
Because they don't feel that there's any hope for them to be able to have that. They feel like they've been excluded from that, and then and then in a matter of sour grapes, they demean that. They say those people aren't really living legitimate lives. They aren't living a nice rebellious life, and so that they don't have meaning.
Yeah, misery loves company.
Yeah, and the miserable companies are the ones that are most likely to perpetuate terror.
Yeah. Another point that Jordan Peterson has made before.
Perpetuate.
Another point that he's made before is that when we have this dialogue of ideas, he talks about how coming up with these ideas in speech is such a wonderful tool, because instead of staking our entire life to an idea, we can kill our ideas instead of killing ourselves.
Yeah, we can perform thought experiments that don't have any real life consequences.
Yes. And so we can work out the consequences in dialogue with another person before we live them out, potentially making a fatal mistake, like joining ISIS and blowing yourself up.
It's the great thing about being human, is being able to anticipate the future, be able to extrapolate from the past, and say, well, things have always worked this way. What makes me think that they might work different now? Or what makes me think that I've got a better way? Or what makes me think that doing the same thing is going to result in a different, outcome? Because that's the so-called definition of insanity, doing the same things over and expecting a different outcome. So,
as a mental health counselor, is that the actual definition of insanity?
It's as good a working definition as any.
I mean, a lot of people do that.
It's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
In order to have any kind of mental disorder, you have to have some sort of impairment in your function
Yeah.
in your life. There has to be something that's causing a problem in either your ability to relate or maintain a positive, somewhat stable mood, or be able to work, be able to
interact with society.
Yeah, and just get along.
Yeah.
Freud said that the definition of mental health is to be able to work and to love. That's it. Pretty simple, really. Yeah. You'd think that it was a lot more. He'd be a lot more sophisticated in how he said it, but that was basically what he said. If you're able to work and you're able to love, then you're healthy enough.
Well, once again, getting back to Genesis, Father Mike says the three things we were made for is labor, leisure, and love.
Yeah.
That's what Freud is saying. Are you able to do those things?
Right.
Then you're somewhat mentally healthy.
Yeah.
At least enough.
You're good enough. Yeah. Nobody's perfect.
So, yeah, the free speech allows for a marketplace of ideas, which always is going to improve society. And also, my husband made an interesting point, which I hadn't really thought about in these terms before, but he says, we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And if we're not able to freely express our ideas, we don't know what the people actually want.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not able to make a political system and a governmental system and a societal system that's in line with what people want if we're not able to express what we want. And so I think those are all, really important things.
And if the flock of sheeple that we are is only fed one stream of
propaganda,
then pretty soon that becomes the standard. That becomes the only thing.
Yeah.
And if we're getting fake news of either stripe, which is mostly what we get, I think. It's all biased in some direction or another. Then, if you buy into that, you're going to see the world from that direction.
Yeah.
From that point of view. And that's a dangerous thing, because the world is a vast, varied thing that has all kinds of possibilities in all kinds of directions, that if we don't allow ourselves to see it, we're cheating ourselves of a great number of possibilities.
Yeah. Once again, this is just the Jordan Peterson episode, but he talks a lot about ideology. And what ideology is a way to explain every single problem you come across with the same answer, essentially. But
which sometimes libertarian becomes that simple kind of ideology as well.
Anything can. Yeah. Anything can, but we need to at least be able to question it and say. And once again, that's actually kind of a nice thing about libertarianism, is that we, there is room for variety of thought, and there is a variation of. There's people who believe all kinds of different things on all kinds of different topics in libertarianism. Mm-hmm. They just tend to say the government isn't usually the answer.
Well,
sometimes
that's kind of a basis. Yeah.
Sometimes it is the answer. Like, we both have said that we think the military and the police,
at least sometimes maybe more than that.
Yeah.
Is legitimate functions of the government. Sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes even in that they overreach.
Of course. Yeah. It's not just carte blanche for anything you want to do in the military.
I've heard that some people have problems with the way the police interact.
Really?
I've heard that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Obviously, I think that there's lots of things we could criticize about the police and the way that it's used, but that's a topic for another day.
It should be a topic.
Definitely.
Yeah, it certainly has been a big topic in the world
these days.
In the U.S. anyway.
So, one last point that I wanted to make was that when we talk about is speech violence, words can, I was reading this article, this opinion from the New York Times.
Sticks and stones can break your bones.
Yes, but words can never hurt me.
But words
sometimes hurt.
Hurt worse. Emotionally.
Well, and they were in this
It hurt my felines, and I'm not kidding.
In this New York Times opinion, they were saying, you know, if I say to you, I'm going to punch you in the face next Monday.
Bring it.
And then next Monday, I actually come punch you in the face. What hurts worse? And their point was,
the punch in the face.
Psychologically, words can be very damaging, all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. But, of course, words can affect people, and bullying can really hurt people, and threats can hurt people, and all this stuff. But when we talk about the law, and I think that's ultimately what we're talking about when we're talking about free speech as, you know, part of our Constitution and part of the law of the U.S., there has to be, anytime you have a law, there has to be standards that you can apply broadly, right? You don't want a law that's only relevant in one situation, because then it's not a law. It's just one case of something happening. So words that are mean and can hurt people's feelings, those are really ultimately subjective. Because if I say to my dad, I hate you, I'm going to punch you in the face. It's like,
you.
Yeah, he can take that, you know, he can take that in any way possible. If I say the same thing. Or
I can say, you know, I'm not going to take that personally. I know you're having a bad day.
Or you're like, go away.
Go ahead,
away from me. I'm going to ignore you.
Have your mood, you freak.
I've had people who have bullied me in the past, and sometimes I've taken it personally, and it's really hurt me. And sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm just going to block you in every sense of my life, and I'm going to ignore you, and I'm going to try to live my life despite you doing all these things to me. But
you use the broken pop machine strategy. Have I ever mentioned that to you?
No, what is that?
Broken pop machine. That's where you know somebody comes up to a pop machine, a Coke machine, whatever, and they put in 50 cents. They expect to get something out of it.
Yeah.
They're looking for an effect.
Yes.
They're looking for a can of pop.
Because once again, hurt people.
Yeah.
And they want to have a reaction.
And if somebody comes up to you and says, you are
ugly.
Goofy.
Yeah.
You're a pickle. You are an icky pickle. And you say, how dare you? Then they feel like, I have the power to affect their feelings. Yeah. Doesn't that make me something? Don't I exist in the world because I'm capable of affecting this actual, situation in the world?
Yes.
Whereas if you say, whatever.
Okay, bye.
Whatever, yeah, I'm a pickle. Good call. Takes one to know one. Good job, buddy. And you don't let it bother you, then they move on to find somebody else whose feelings they can manipulate.
Yeah.
So, it's our job to not take things personally, to not let people who don't deserve to have any kind of
control over your
social
life.
Power in our life have any power in our life. If people are just going to be jerks, let them be jerks, but don't take it personally. Don't interact with it.
Yeah.
We were talking about opinions before, that opinions are like a certain body part.
Yeah. Elbows.
Yeah. And if somebody identifies themselves as an elbow, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
You know what, and if you want more elbow grease, go ahead and continue to interact with the elbow, but you don't have to. You are perfectly free to disengage. Somebody comes pressing on you, you can press back, you can pull away, or you can just disengage.
Yeah.
You say, I want nothing to do with
that.
And
I do think,
you're having a day. Go ahead.
I don't want to...
Today's not my day to fix you.
Yeah. I don't want to trivialize it, because I do think that there are instances where people can be really hurtful with words, especially when we're talking about racial attacks or attacks on something that's important to somebody.
And in those situations, you have to rise above that too and say, you know what? If you really knew who I am and what I am, you wouldn't be saying that. Clearly, you have no understanding of me, and so you have no valid opinion of me, and you don't get to decide how I'm going to feel about myself today, and so I'm not going to let you affect me in that way at all.
Yeah.
I'm going to insulate myself from you and just I'm going to consider the source, recognize that you're a jerky idiot, and not take you personally, and not allow you to affect me that way.
And I think ultimately, even if we want to say words are extremely hurtful and can actually hurt somebody, I think the point that I want to make is words and their harm are subjective, and violence by definition of law has to be objective, because that's the only way that we can actually regulate violence, is for it to be objective.
There has to be evidence that it's taking place.
And we don't want the government, ultimately, even if you believe that words are violence, which I don't think either of us believe, even if you believe that speech is violence, I don't think we want to give the government the power to regulate and suppress speech and decide when is something okay and when is something not, as far as speech goes, because it's
too far of a reach.
Yeah, it's too much. It's giving the government too much power. Ultimately,
right.
Even we should definitely make an episode about the death penalty, because this is actually like my exact same theory about the death penalty. I think there are actually times when people deserve to die. Like, frankly, but I never want to give the government the power to decide when it's okay to kill somebody. Yeah. I don't want to give them that power.
Because because their decisions are always tainted by their outlook.
And subject to human failing.
Yeah.
Because the government is people.
The
government is not any better than people.
They're not perfectly just, and they can make mistakes.
So
we didn't talk at all about, is silence violence? And sometimes it is. I know, as a social worker, and in most helping professions, you are obligated to report situations where there is abuse and neglect and things of that sort to vulnerable populations. You have to do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't, there's a law against that, because that's considered, basically
enabling.
Yeah, enabling. It's complicity, maybe after the fact or whatever. But you need to stand up for people if you're in certain situations. And I think almost everybody needs to be able to do that if they suspect that somebody's being abused, especially a child or some other vulnerable person. They need to stand up for them and try to protect them. So silence can also be a violence in a way, in that it again, it allows that situation that has potential real life consequences to continue.
Yeah. But once again, I do think that's a really hard thing to legislate, in the sense that how can you prove I mean, it's a little easier.
How can you know when it's right to take kids out of a family? If a situation, if a domestic disturbance happens, like happened in our home yesterday, and if there was other people around, some sensitive folks might have said, "Oh, we need to get the law involved here."
Just to be clear, no one was physically harmed during the altercation.
No animals were injured in the making of this episode.
There was
a lot of monkey poop flying, but nobody lost an eye.
A lot of hurt feelings, but yeah. Anyway.
But anyway, so
you were talking about,
my point is that silence can be violence, and because silence can also allow real life situations to go on.
If you think about like the Kitty Genovese case, did you ever?
Know
what that is? I mean, there's people who saw violence taking place, but they think somebody else will help her, or somebody must already be on the way.
But there's also lots of situations where kids have said, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to shoot up the school, and other kids, but please don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Those kind of keeping that secret and keeping that silence actually allows violent situations to erupt and tragedies to.
That's part of the reason why I tell my kids, like, we don't keep secrets.
Yeah.
Because secrets, as they say in The Office, secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone. But honestly, like especially if an adult is ever telling a child, keep this a secret, it's never a good. That's never preceded by something good.
Right. Don't tell mom.
But even kids.
I better go tell mom.
But even kids talking to each other about serious things like that, like that needs to be, because that's too much for a kid to deal with on their own. They need to They need to go talk to somebody. But do we want to hit? Is there anything on the Catholic front that we need to talk about free speech? I don't really know how to relate it to. I mean, once again, this is a thing of, when we're talking about freedom from a Catholic perspective, we're talking about the ability to choose the good. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, why do we have free speech? Hopefully so that we can choose to use it for good and not for evil. But
and I think that, the Catholic position has evolved on that as the Catholic power in the world has lessened.
Sure.
I think the viewpoint on that has changed.
Like Galileo being suppressed.
Right, and that the Spanish Church. Inquisition, and
that,
heretics and blasphemers need to be, ferreted out and burned. Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's how you fix that problem? What about love?
Yeah.
What about loving
and those things really are anti-biblical.
Loving the sinner and hating the sin, and trying to, how do we straighten things out with our brothers? First, we talk to our brothers. If that doesn't work, mm-hmm. we get a couple other people and we say, "Come on now, man. You're part of us, and we it's hurtful that we're in this conflict. Let's work it out." And if after that, you just let them go.
Yeah.
You don't stone them to death.
Yeah.
Holy moly! What? I hope we've come a little further than that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the Catholic point of view has certainly evolved on that with society. I mean, as society has become more a culture of laws and rules, and that Catholics have become a lot more tolerant of other religions and a lot more respectful of other religions. It used to be that Protestants and Catholics couldn't get along.
Yeah.
Now we have to recognize, hey, we're all brothers in Christ here. We're all baptized members of the church.
Yeah. Well, even between Jews and Catholics, we're all,
and Muslims too.
We're all people. Exactly. We're all people. We're all striving to serve the same God ultimately.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anybody who is a sincere, good faith seeker of truth and beauty and love, I mean, wherever there is love, there is God.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it says in one of those Passover readings?
Probably.
Yeah. Where there's love, there is God.
So I think that's good for the day. Unless there's anything else you want to say about free speech.
No, that's good.
So thank you for joining us. We will.
All this speech was free.
Yes.
You can
request a refund.
Request a refund and double your money back.
Yeah. I was trying to come up with some joke. It didn't work out. That's fine. Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
All right.
God bless you.
Bye.